firstly, I want to welcome everybody here, and actually it's for Sri Dr. Nandakumar to welcome us to Bharati Vidya Bhavan. But my name is Dr. Vayu Naidu. My area is oral tradition, so right from Kathamrita days, my area is stories. So it's a great privilege for me to welcome Swami Atmapriyananda and Swami Japasiddhananda to this center, which has always known, was established to bridge very strong cultural heritage and links between India and, in this case, Britain, because we are located here. We're also very proud of the work that has been done by the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, set up earlier on by K.M. Munshi ji, but more of that later. But now we have two speakers, and Swami Atmapriyananda is going to chair this. But basically, what we are looking at, I find it a great privilege that living 100 years or more on from Swami Vivekananda's time, this is the time we find the actual radiation and the need, and in the radiation, the need, and actually the deliverance of his message from his realizations. And that's going to be coming through by both our speakers today. But just by way of introduction, I think many of you were at the retreat at Vedanta Center over the weekend. But our Swami Atmapriyananda ji is a senior monk of the Ramakrishna Order and the Pro-Chancellor of the Ramakrishna Mission, Vivekananda University at Belur Math, India. He's the founder and vice chancellor of this university, in which capacity he served for more than 15 years from 2005 to 2020, before being elevated to the position of pro-chancellor. Swami is a member of several global organizations, including the New York-based Religions for Peace, in which he is the co-chair, Tokyo-based Arigato International, Israel-based Elijah Interfaith Institute, etc., working for the promotion and harmony and peace, holistic welfare of children, interreligious dialogues, etc. He travels extensively to participate on invitation in various seminars, workshops, and conferences in India and abroad, organized by universities, research institutes, and religious organizations on different spiritual and educational themes. It's a great honor, Maharaj, that you're here. Thank you. And Swami Sarvashtananda has been our, not only the head of our center at Bourne End, but over the last 35 years since I've been in England, going there since Swami Bhavinanda's time. It's great that Swami Sarvashtananda has linked us through Zoom, through to our Ramakrishna centers all across India. And we miss him today. He's, I think, at the Northern Lights in Iceland. But thanks to him, we are all here today. May I also introduce our excuse me, speaker, Swami Japasiddhananda ji. He is the head of the Department of Sanskrit and Philosophy at the Ramakrishna Mission, Vivekananda University, Belur Math, Bharat. Swami completed his PhD in Sanskrit grammar on the title Linguistic Association of All Knowledge as postulated in Vakyapadyam, a critical study. The Swami will also take a workshop on Sanskrit grammar at the Faculty of Asian and Middle Eastern Studies, which he has already done on 6th June. Yeah. I'm also, if I may introduce you as well, Dr. Paromita Roy is the present holder of the Swami Abhedananda Chair instituted by the Government of India at the Ramakrishna Mission, Vivekananda University, Belur Math, Bharat. She teaches philosophy at the university. She has a very extensive CV, and what is very exciting about her work is the East-West dialogue of looking at both philosophy, and now you're moving into a research area of care and also the ecological factors. So So we are delighted to welcome you all. It's a real, I don't know, it's a blessing. I'm a very humble bhakta, but it's great for me to have you. Thank you. And in the auspices of the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan. I know I'm hoping that as the speakers come on, you will introduce the title of your talk and proceed. Thank you.
Sir, please you say a few words.
I will say at the end, I will propose vote of thanks.
Vote of thanks.
Swamiji, if you could say.
As a director, you should, and you know he's getting a great honor from the British government. So also congratulate him.
We were all so happy, our Shantiji mentioned as well, when Vayuji, you sent a note, we felt so happy because Bhavan and Ramakrishna Mission, they're so connected. Swami Ranganathananda ji, who is one of the closest persons who blessed Bhavan like anything. Here also, I still remember sitting with Swami Ranganathananda ji and our Ramakrishnan, who used to be Director General of Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan. When Swamiji was in Hyderabad, and then he had come to London and he stayed with us here. And also Bhavan took birth here in this part of the world at the Ramakrishna Mission when Swami Vivekananda ji was the head here. And the office was in Holland Park. Now afterwards, when we moved here, they moved to Vedanta Center in Bourne there. That's how the connection, Swami Vivekananda ji and Swami Atmapriyananda ji, Swami Sarvasthananda ji, all of them have it. Sarvasthananda ji every second Saturday holds a talk here, because we still remember when Swamiji came, to Bhavan way back in 1972. He was so very happy that Bhavan had arrived in London. And Ramakrishnan ji and all the people connected to the Bhavan, they stayed at the Ramakrishna Mission because they didn't have any place. They knew no one else other than the ashram. And when we moved here, Swamiji they had presented with a table. That table we still had until recently, must be somewhere there for the past almost 50 years. We used to have that, for the lectures, etc. We are very, very closely connected with the ashram, Swamiji. We are so happy that, you have given this opportunity for Bhavan to hold this. I wish it was in the evening so that more people would have been able to come, because this is working time. That's why, otherwise we could have had it in the hall also. Maybe next time. Thank you so much for coming and blessing the Bhavan. Thank you all for coming, though it is office time. Namo Namah.
So today, I'm supposed to be chairing the session. Chairing this, I sit in a chair. Chairing is called a namadhatu in Sanskrit. Noun is used as a verb. Chair is a noun. Chairing is actually a verb. So it's called namadhatu in Sanskrit. So today we have two topics which are not immediately related, but any topic is related to any other topic in knowledge. Knowledge is akhanda, knowledge is unbroken. So Swami Japasiddhananda will talk on Swami Vivekananda's 4 yogas. All of us know that Swamiji spoke on Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga and Raja Yoga in the West. He was a pioneer who brought yoga to the West. He spoke about 4 yogas, people were excited, thrilled. And the Raja Yoga created so much of excitement among the physiologists at this time and the religionists. William James, in his varieties of religious experience, referred to Swamiji's ideas of Kundalini, etc. The physiologists and anatomists also very excited about it. It is said Swamiji was asked by people, can we go into Samadhi so that we can actually know, experience, see and test? And he did. Unfortunately, we can't do it here. We are only piggybacking on Swami Vivekananda and borrowing his legacy as humble servants of Vivekananda. We are basking in his glory. What little glory we have is nothing. Tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam tasya bhasa sarvavidam vibhati, as the Katholism would say. So Swamiji spoke on these 4 yogas. One of the disciples writes in the reminiscences, we were almost sorry there were only 4 yogas, because 4 yogas going to end. And Swami Vivekananda, one peculiar idea of Swamiji, which seems to be somewhat new, is that he insisted that the 4 yogas should be harmoniously combined, which seems to be slightly deviating from the interpretations of the previous acharyas. As we know, Shankaracharya was against Jnana Karma Samuchaya, and many of the acharyas also said one could lead to the other, but you can't have a combination of these 4 yogas. Swami Vivekananda not only insisted upon this combination, this harmonious blending of the yogas, but also said, Sri Ramakrishna is such a harmony, and we have to harmonize all these 4 yogas. The famous quote, which perhaps he will quote, I don't know, he writes in a letter to his famous, very favorite Madras disciple called Kiri. Kiri, in Tamil is called Kili. Kili means a parrot. Swamiji used to nickname everybody, including his own guru. He used to call him the Buddha Brahman, this old man. The only person for whom is the greatest of respect, Holy Mother Sharada, he never. He always says, Sahasra Sashtanga Prasanta. So he wrote to Kiri, faith is a great insight and it alone can save. But it may breed fanaticism leading, barring further progress. Jnana is all right, but may end up with a dry intellectualism. Bhakti, love is great and noble, it may degenerate into meaningless sentimentalism. The harmony of all these is required. Ramakrishna was such a harmony, if each one of us cannot individually combine in ourselves all the 4 yogas, we can do it collectively by counteracting, equipoising, adjusting, and fulfilling one another. This will be a harmony of a number of persons and a decided advance over other creeds. This is the statement he made. And he funnily remarked in one letter, I am giving them, means the Westerners, I am giving the hard, dry reason, sweetened by the syrup of love, made spicy with work, and cooked in the kitchen of yoga so that even a baby can easily digest. So this is one very interesting theme which Japasiddhananda will talk about. So jnana, bhakti, karma and yoga are not only not compartmentalized, and to add to that, there's no ladder theory. We have a ladder theory, one leading to the other. And this somebody says that jnana leads to bhakti, bhakti leads to jnana. Swami Atmapriyananda of revered memory, who mentored me for years, he used to say, we say Dvaita, Visishta, Dvaita, Advaita, like a ladder, one leads to the ladder can also be reversed. So these are various theories people have debated together for centuries together. The great harmonizer Sri Ramakrishna was projected by Swami Vivekananda as one who harmonized all paths and all ideas and all the yogas. For the present day, Swami Vivekananda felt the harmony is not only necessary but is a sine qua non for everybody in the modern world. So this is the theme on which he is going to speak. And Dr. Paromita will speak on Biospheric Egalitarianism, and we were bowled over by this. And if you don't understand something, you feel great about it. I'm not saying Vedanta says this. Vedanta says Ajnana is the cause of everything, all problems. What is Ajnana is undefined. And in ignorance there is great bliss. Sushupti, there is Ajnana, and there is not knowing anything. So ignorance of everything and a joy whose source you do not really know. So Sukham asvapsam na kanchita vedisham. I slept happily, I did not know anything. So this complicated title actually means very simple. This is an idea which is called deep ecology. She will explain it more. Deep ecology is an emerging subject in the West, which we knew millennia and millennia ago, which is reverence for nature. Not only you think you have respect for people, but you have positive reverence for nature, moving away from anthropocentrism, in which you feel that man is dominating the whole of nature, and nature is supposed to be for my not only enjoyment, for my dominance. From that you move to a position in which you know, feel, realize you are also part of nature, and therefore you have no right to dominate over everything. You move over to what is called ecocentrism. She will talk about that from the Eastern and Western perspectives. She has made a deep study of the deep ecology books, the Western perspective, and she will show the parallels, not only the parallels, how these have deep roots in the Prithvi Suktam and the Vedic Suktas of the Vedas, and later on the Upanishads and so on. So this is the general structure. Now goes Swami Japasiddhananda.
Om Namo Bhagavate Ramakrishnaaya. My pranams to Revered Swami Atmapriyananda Maharaj. My regards to the esteemed director Nandakumarji of Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan and other scholars and devotees and others who have gathered here. The topic is 4 yogas of Swami Vivekananda and their synthesis. In the Indian Vedic culture, Vedantic culture, we have such a thing as Purushartha. Purushartha, that which is fit to be achieved or acquired by all human beings. There are 4. One is merit, dharma. Other is means for attaining any desired object. Merit or dharma, means, artha, desired objects, kama, and finally knowing one's own real nature and becoming free from all grief and sorrow, crossing over this transmigrative existence. That is the final goal of human life. In attaining this final goal, several methods are laid out by the sages. We may classify them into 4 major groups: psychic control, being established in the awareness of the self, directing our massive force, the love towards the final goal or one's own self, Atman, or you may call it God, and then continuous action, the work for work's sake, without seeking any benefits, any result. These are the 4 major groupings of the methods which are laid out in attaining to the ultimate goal of life. In the earlier ages, some of them would choose jnana, some of them yoga, some bhakti, some karma. We have such examples in our scriptures. Even in Ramakrishna Kathamrita we find Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna points out that the bhakti of the gopis of Vrindavan, the Braj, it was unadulterated. Unadulterated means there should be no selfish motive behind. That is one of the meanings. Another meaning, Bhagavan Ramakrishna himself points out, even it should not be mixed up with jnana. Jnana means not the supreme jnana, the primary jnana. Because that reason will not enter there. Reason will be there, the love will not contradict reason, but the importance is not on that. He gives a very good example He says Radhika. Radha used to write, as a small girl, she used to write the picture of Sri Krishna and she would not write the feet. Why? She thought that he may run away. Means that's much, it's simply steeped in love, unselfish love. Even the reason doesn't has any entry into that realm. These were the paradigms in the earlier ages. Even now they are there, but now in this age, a harmony is required. A harmony of maybe 2, 3, 4, according to what one chooses. If one is exceptionally capable, he may go on one method solely, one method alone. That may also be possible, we don't know. But the most favorable in this age is the combination and the harmonious blending of all these faculties. Swamiji put it in very nice way. He says, each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest this divinity within by controlling nature, external and internal. Do this either by work or worship or psychic control, yoga, or philosophy, by one or two, one or more or all of these, and be free. This is the whole of religion. Doctrines or dogmas or rituals or books or temples or forms are but secondary details. Now these are the 4 things that are presented here: psychic control, worship, philosophy and work. We all have these faculties in us. We may notice that all these faculties are more or less always functioning. Say if we go to the temple, ashram or Vedanta center is there, we'll sit there and meditate for a few minutes, and after that you feel an urge to serve. The sadhus are there, Bhagavan Ramakrishna, God is there. You would like to serve in the shrine. After that, when you come aside and see that there are some books, you would like to read and gain some new insights. That instinct or that urge for knowledge is there. The urge for that loving service is there. The urge for the mystic experience is there. Mothers intuitively know what the child wants. That means that mystic element is already there in every one of us. Swamiji says you cultivate it scientifically. Even science, even as the science has its own norms, religion has its own method. Why don't you practice it scientifically? Swamiji says cultivate all these faculties and become a fully blown personality. That is Swamiji's idea. Swamiji says the methods of attaining the end of religion are these yogas. It is called as yoga by us. And the different forms of yoga that we teach are adapted to the different natures and temperaments of man. The manner in which a man realizes his own divinity through works and duty is karma yoga. Bhakti yoga is the realization of the divinity through devotion to and love of a personal God. Raja yoga is the meditation, is the realization of the divinity through the control of mind. Jnana yoga is the realization of a man's own divinity through knowledge. After this, Swamiji makes an important remark. He says, these are all different roads leading to the same center, God. It was, in a way, given in Gita also. Not exactly like this, it suggests. Yat sankhyaiv prapyate sthanam tad yogairapi gamyate. Ekam sankhyancha yogancha yaf pashyati sapashyati. That's what Swamiji highlighted. The Swamiji's idea of an integral, complete, perfect personality is very much needed in this age. Nowadays, everywhere, many times we listen that personality development workshops are held. Most of the time, it is a cosmetic treatment that is taught there. When you enter a room, you behave like this. Etiquette they teach, and is it personality? Swamiji gives what should be the idea of complete, integral, and perfect personality. Swamiji says, "Would to God that all men were so constituted that in their minds all these elements of philosophy, mysticism, emotion, and of work are equally present in full. That is the ideal, my ideal of a perfect man. Everyone who has only one or two of these elements of character, I consider one-sided. And this world is almost full of such one-sided men, with knowledge of that one road only in which they move, and nothing else is, and anything else is dangerous and horrible to them. To become harmoniously balanced in all these four directions is my ideal of religion. And this religion is attained by what we in India call yoga. Yoga means union. To the worker, it is union between the whole of humanity, between himself and the whole of humanity. To the mystic, between his lower and higher self. To the lover, the bhakta, union between himself and the God of love. And to the philosopher, it is the union of all existence. This is what is meant by yoga. This type of an ideal, which offers an opportunity for all, means equally philosophic, equally emotional, equally mystic, and equally conducive to action. This ideal we need the most now. These various yogas are not conflicting with each other. Each of them leads us to the same goal and makes us perfect. Only each has to be strenuously practiced. The whole secret is in practicing. Actually, in our scriptures, we find insights about this harmonious blending of different faculties. But emphasis was elsewhere. In each age, some message was prominent and the other messages took a backseat, as it were, because what was most needed for the age was given by the prophets who came during that time. Now this age calls for the harmonious blending of different energies. Swamiji represents that harmony of all beneficial and constructive forces. He is the harbinger of harmony. He read this message in and through the life and message of Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna, and he boldly proclaimed this to the entire world. That is his unique contribution. Say, for example, in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 4th chapter, we read, Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. This comes in the Jnana Yoga. This one sentence contains so many elements. Tadvidhi, you know, knowledge. Pranipata, bhakti. Pariprashna, their inquiry comes into play. Seva, karma comes into play. Like this, in our scripture, it is replete with such ideas of bringing in different faculties. But the emphasis was not given during that time to these things. One more example. The same 4th chapter of Gita we find, Nahi jnanena sadrisham pavitramiha vidyate tat swayam yoga samsiddhaha. kalenatmani vindati. Now he is speaking of jnana. Nothing is as purifying as jnana is. That's what he said. And you will achieve it by what? By yoga. He brings in yoga there. And Bhagavan Shankara explains it as yogena, karma yogena, samadhi yogena cha. That means again he has brought in Raja Yoga and Karma Yoga into this and says by this you get the jnana. As our Maharaj pointed out, these different acharyas conceived that all these faculties come in as an aid and one stands prominent according to the temperament of the seeker. If he is of the jnana type, other things will come in as an aid. And if he is of the bhakta type, all the other three comes in as a help. Then we have one more, in the 6th chapter we have Shraddhavan bhajate yo mam same yuktatamo mataha. There again Bhagavan Krishna, he says Shraddhavan, one who is full of faith, and then bhajate, sevate. Seva is there, and also Shraddha is mentioned. And again, such a one becomes yuktatama, means the best of the yogis, the best among the yogis, yuktatama, atishayena yuktaha. So we find these ideas coming in, blending, they are blended together. And one more interesting insight we get from Bhagavan Sri Shankara in the 10th chapter. In the 10th chapter where Bhagavan says, Tesham evanu kampartham aham ajnanajan tamaha nashayami atma bhavastho jnanadipena bhasvata. He says, I remove the ignorance in the hearts of these my devotees by the jnanadipa, by the light of knowledge, by the lamp of knowledge. Now Shankara enters into a figure, alankara, because the lamp is mentioned, lamp of knowledge, it is a figurative usage. Now he gives the full description how that figure can be complete. There Bhagavan Acharya, the commentator, brings in all the yogas. We will find that Shankara also had this idea. Jnanadipena viveka pratyaya rupena bhakti prasada sneha abhishiktena bhakti, then madbhavana abhinivesha vateritena brahmacharyadi sadhana samskaravat prajnavartina. By this he has brought in all the ahimsa, satya, stay, all those things have to be taken. Importantly, brahmacharya he means because varti or the wick should be dried. Bhagavan Ramakrishna used to point out every time, if the matchstick is wet, it will not catch fire. It has to be dried first, and that drying up comes from vairagya. Brahmacharyadi sadhana samskaravat prajnavartina viraktantah karanadharena Vishaya vyavritta chitta ragadvesha akalushita nivata apavarakasthena. It's very interesting. In that 8th century, when Bhagavan Shankara was there, you might have noticed that in the temples, nowadays we put a glass cover, is it not? A round cover is kept. We light the lamp, so may the lamp not go out due to wind, we put a very nice transparent cover. That is mentioned here. Nivata apavarakasthena nitya pravritta ekagriya dhyana janita samyak darshana bhasvata jnana deepena. Jnana, bhakti, karma have all come into the play here. But now, if we find that all these were in some form mentioned earlier, where lies the unique contribution of Swamiji? Swamiji says, all this can be practiced by the same person in his life as a part of his spiritual discipline in reaching the goal. Swamiji mentions this because he brought in harmony of different forces. For example, practical urge or the practical skill, some people have more. Some of them are oriented towards idealist they are. And then strength. Those who are very strong, maybe they lack that feeling. Swamiji says strength should be there, tenderness also should be there. And again, physical build as well as the intellectual capacity and religious harmony and the harmony of four yogas. And he also wanted that there should be a healthy, beneficial blend of the Oriental as well as the Occidental. What are all the best elements in the Oriental should be blended with the best aspects in the Occidental, and a new civilization should come up from this, which will be marching towards progress for the benefit of all. For example, how this practical and ideal both are necessary. Swamiji says, first, we have to understand that we must not have any impossible ideal. On the other hand, too much of practicality is also wrong. If you have not even a little imagination, if you have no ideal to guide you, you are simply a brute. So, we must not lower our ideal. Neither are we to lose sight of practicality. We must avoid the two extremes. Then strength and tenderness. The combination is rarely found. There are people who have both, but rarely found. Swamiji says, the true man is he who is strong as strength itself and yet possesses a woman's heart. And again, in Belur Math, while he was talking to the monks and he was guiding them in the ideal and how to hold on to that ideal, during that time, Swamiji says, you must be prepared to go into deep meditation now, and the next moment you must be ready to go and cultivate these fields. He was pointing to the meadows in the Belur Math. You must be prepared to explain the difficult intricacies of the Shastras now, and the next moment to go and sell the produce of the fields in the market. This is how he guided, he trained the monks of the Ramakrishna order. Regarding these different faculties in all of us, Swamiji says this, that's which our revered Maharaj mentioned. He wrote this to one of his disciples, Kidi, in Chennai. Swamiji said, I agree with you so far that faith is a wonderful insight and that it alone can save. But there is the danger in it of breeding fanaticism, barring progress. Jnana is all right, but there is the danger of its becoming dry intellectualism. Love is great and noble, but it may die away in meaningless sentimentalism. A harmony of all these is the thing required. Ramakrishna was such a harmony. Such beings are few and far between, but keeping him and his teachings as the ideal, we can move on. And if amongst us each one may not individually attain to that perfection, still we may get it collectively by counteracting, equipoising, adjusting and fulfilling one another. This would be harmony by a number of persons and a decided advance on all other forms and creeds. This collective harmony we can definitely achieve. That is why Swamiji brought all these four yogas together and gave the new ideal to the age, and he himself designed the emblem of Ramakrishna Math and Ramakrishna Mission. He himself explains that. Once he wrote also, and again two places we find in complete works, and one in the conversation and dialogues of Swamiji, which now is available in the 7th volume of the complete works. He explained this. Swamiji said, you may imagine that, I'm unable to show the slide now. The wavy waters in the picture are symbolic of karma. The lotus of bhakti and the rising sun of jnana, the encircling serpent is indicative of yoga and the awakened kundalini shakti, while the swan in the hamsa in the middle of the picture, while the swan in the picture stands for the Paramatman, Supreme Self. Therefore, the idea of the picture is that by the union of karma, jnana, bhakti and yoga, the vision of the Paramatman is obtained. This is what Swamiji gave us. Now we all should endeavor to consciously culture and cultivate these different faculties in us. This much about this harmonizing the yoga according to Swami Vivekananda. When we dwell upon these things, naturally one question may arise. We may ask, if any one path, or to Swamiji himself said, do it by one or more or all of these. That means option is given. If one can achieve this by following two things, then why all of them? Why he also professed that a harmonious blend of all the four would be beneficial and that would be the complete personality. Why? Because in this age we find that when we engage ourselves in some activity and come out of that, our other faculties pop up. They are very much active. If you say that I am not for jnana, I am not into the enquiry of things, I am not of that nature, I wish to offer my heart at the feet of Lord in one, by pouring it out, the devotion I pour out, that is my nature. If I say so, once I come out of the worship room, obviously, in spite of myself, my mind keeps on inquiring into the faults of others. I want it or not, I do that. In the same way, other faculties are also active. Swamiji targeted there, because you already have this disease, you better use it for attaining the ultimate goal of life. And it is very much relevant in this age. So, may we all pray to the Almighty Lord that He give us the wisdom, discernment and the courage to follow this path. Thank you all. Jai Ram.
So, thank you, Swami Japasiddhananda. One more very interesting verse which I am going to read out. 13th chapter, shloka number 24. ध्यानेन आत्मनिपश्यन्ति केचित् आत्मानमात्मना अन्ये सांख्येन योगेन कर्मयोगेन चापरे. Here Bhagavan is by this, कर्मयोगेन च अपरे. Of course, the Bhashakaras are slightly uneasy with these verses. You can do it कर्मयोगेन च. You can do it by karma yoga. You can ध्यानेन आत्मनिपश्यन्ति इत्यादि. And secondly, by yoga, what is meant is somehow you attain the Lord or whatever path. So, when the Bhagavan uses yoga in the second chapter, and the third chapter he uses the word sense of karma yoga. Uses this in the sixth chapter, there is also dhyana yoga. And during the bhakti, he uses the word in the case of bhakti. The same word, this semantic confusion is the most confusing. The problem is each of these acharyas have used these words in a particular fashion, and before you study that system, you have to have a clear definition of these words, like in science, for example. And secondly, Swami Vivekananda, the emblem interpretation given here, there is a very interesting loophole. I do not know how it is going to be solved by the Ramakrishna Mission. In the Bengali version, which is the original, it says, Gyan, Bhakti, Karma, Jog, Shamanvai, Korlei, Bhagavad Darshan, Paramatma Darshan Bhave. Only by the combination of Jnana, Bhakti, Karma and Yoga. In the English, the only they have dropped. But Swamiji speaks in two voices, so that's important. He says, by one or more or all of these. On the other hand, he says, you have to combine. Combination of the yogas is absolutely necessary. So, there is no harm in being one-sided. You can have a Prakriti, for Ramana Maharshi, for example. He was all and out for jnana, although some components of bhakti must have there inside. And therefore, he gives the option, but the best option is to combine. That may be because each one of us cannot attain perfection in a particular thing unless you are extraordinary. And therefore, in order that you may approximate to the ideal, you have to go combine all these four yogas. One more very interesting insight of Swami Vivekananda when he speaks about universal religion. My ideal, he has two important lectures: the ideal of the universal religion and the way to the realization of the universal religion, where he says the combination of yogas in the individual level will translate into the harmony of religions at the collective level. And he says each of the religions is based on a particular yoga. The Buddhism, for example, is highly Jnana Yoga oriented. Christianity, Islam is more surrender oriented, bhakti oriented. Sikhism is more seva and karma oriented. So, the basic temperament of a human personality, jnana, bhakti, karma and yoga, has been taken up a particular religion and emphasized, practiced, and it has been systematized into a huge religion. And therefore, if you combine in an individual level all the four yogas in your personality, it will automatically translate into the harmony of religions at the collective level. The Swamiji is a very interesting idea. He throws that idea there. So the idea of harmony of yogas, combination of yogas, synthesis of yogas is a very unique combination. Swamiji put that picture there and added one line which is given only to sannyasins. The Hamsa mantra, Tanno Hamsa Prachodaya. Swami gave it to everybody. Which means, may that Hamsa be our inspiration. What does that mean? Who is that Hamsa? He is your own higher self. Hamsa is also the Paramahamsa. Your higher self should be your inspiration. What is the meaning of that? Presently, what is that inspiration? We derive inspiration from our senses. The eye sees and inspires, the ear hears and inspires, and so on. So rather than deriving inspiration from our senses, from our mind, from our buddhi, that the inspiration comes from the divine, the Hamsa, so that we will be able to move towards that. It's called Paramahamsa Gayatri, which is usually replaced by the usual Gayatri during the sannyasa ceremony, the sannyasin having given up the usual kind of Gayatri. Swamiji, in a mood of great compassion, gave it to everybody. It is very significant that he added that line also along with that. So we thank Japasiddhananda for this. We will take questions at the end of both the talks, if anybody has. Now Dr. Paromita.
Good evening to all. My respectful pranams to the monks present here and all the audiences gathered here. As Maharaji was telling, my topic is Biospheric Egalitarianism, and I have not just restricted my discussion to biocentric egalitarianism. I want to carry it a little forward. So it is biocentric egalitarianism and beyond, Eastern and Western perspectives, which takes into its domain Vedic thought and Swami Vivekananda's thoughts as well. And I will, in course of my discussion, I will give the justification why I say biocentric egalitarianism, and I take it beyond, and beyond, as I have mentioned in the title. Now, what exactly does biospheric egalitarianism mean? It means a portion in the atmosphere which really deals with the living organisms, and egalitarianism, we all know, it talks about equality. So biospheric egalitarianism is actually the principle which talks about the equality or equal right of all living beings to thrive on this planet. Now, this idea is coming up in the modern world. Especially when we discuss the concept of deep ecology, we'll find Bill Devil and George Sessions in their book called Deep Ecology. And in fact, this idea of deep ecology, far before Bill Devil and George Sessions, has been discussed by R. Nace, who is in fact he advocates the idea of deep ecology. I'll come to that. So they say, I quote from this deep ecology, what they say about biospheric egalitarianism. This book is, as I said, in the deep ecology, all things in the biosphere have an equal right to live and blossom and to reach their own forms of unfolding and self-realization within the larger self-realization. This basic intuition is that all organisms and entities in the ecosphere as parts of interrelated whole are equal in intrinsic worth. Now this is important. Something, a living being having an intrinsic worth. We generally, when we study environmental ethics, there is a huge debate about intrinsic value and instrumental value. Someone is not considered an environmentalist in the true sense of the term if someone is not having or does not have that appreciation for intrinsic value. Instrumental value means something I value because it serves my own interest. I have to have this understanding or appreciation of life itself because it has the capacity to blossom. So taking that consideration, I give intrinsic worth to it, and it is very important in the environmental sphere. So biospheric egalitarianism that I was talking about, this, when we talk about life, it is so diverse and complex, and when we talk about life, it is always in the environment that life thrives and blossoms, it gets an unfoldment, and therefore the question of environment and of course environmental justice also comes to its domain of discussion. Now recently we find that there has been discussion of environmental justice taking biospheric egalitarianism into its discussion. There are, in fact, it is considered that environmental justices are of 4 kinds, and there are first is considering the inequitable distribution of environmental burdens such as hazardous and polluting industries to vulnerable groups and ethnic minorities. The second is unequal exposure of the developed and developing countries to environmental risks. The third is considered intergenerational justice, which is justice between present and future generation. And interestingly, why I talk about this environmental justice is the 4th form of environmental justice is where this biospheric egalitarianism is included. And we find in the writings of various scholars, like as for example Helena Kopnina in one of the journals of Springer, she is very optimistic about it. She says, of course, when we include biospheric egalitarianism into environmental justice, there needs to be kind of radical revision of policies. Of course, we have to do that because we are taking the intrinsic worth of life, something which we have not done before. We have always been having this kind of a tunneled vision, taking everything and thinking everything in terms of how it will serve human interest. So certainly going from the mainstream and thinking in a different way, so it requires a revision of policies. But she is optimistic in this sense because if we look at taking precedence of how slavery has been intolerable like that, so she thinks in some day or the other this this abusing and tormenting and torturing of life forms will also be put an end to it. So as I'm saying, so this development of environmental philosophy that we are talking about in case of the biospheric egalitarianism, it is just a shift. As in the course of our discussion, we'll see how we are making our journey from the mainstream thinking, from the anthropocentrism to the biocentrism and even beyond that. So we can mention one of the very important lines of Jeremy Bentham. He was an English philosopher and jurist. So he mentions what is to be taken into consideration when we are to treat a living being. It is very important, and nowadays all the animal activists, in fact, they remember this very line of Jeremy Bentham, as for example Peter Singer, and there are also others, Caldecott and also. So Jeremy Bentham mentions that we have to consider the intrinsic value of life, and his lines are very important. He says, the question is not can they reason, talking about the living beings. The question is not can they reason, nor can they talk, but can they suffer? So, citing this passage, Peter Singer, he has been random applying this, taking this into the practical field, and says the capacity for suffering and enjoyment is a prerequisite for having interests at all. So it doesn't mean that if anyone is not able to express its pain, it's not suffering. And therefore, I do not read all the lines. It would have been better if I could have shown this. A mouse, for example, does have an interest in not being kicked along the road because it will suffer. So that it has the capacity to suffer, it brings a moral obligation on our part to deal it ethically. So, so we see that biospheric egalitarianism, the very concept of biospheric egalitarianism, it requires a kind of spiritual maturity. Now, Bill Devil and George Sessions also, they are taking this into note that we require a kind of spiritual growth and maturity in order to appreciate biospheric egalitarianism. And this can really happen, they say, quote unquote, and within the quotes is there, when we come out of this socially programmed sense of the narrow self. And this is also what Swami Vivekananda also says, when we come out of our selfishness, narrowness and littleness. He always says, let us come out of this frogs in the well attitude, not to think in the way, but let us have an ideal and let's move towards that. So we see that deep ecology, why I say deep ecology, because the journey of environmental ethics has not been like a journey in the bed on the bed of roses. It has been a trial and error, and through that we have found that environmentalists have really found that this is not what we have to truly practice as environmentalists. So deep ecology, the very word deep, shows that it raises very profound questions about life, which is in fact showing us that these profound questions of our life will in fact guide us into the kind of intimate relation we already have with nature. In fact, we have lost this bonding. So in order to rebuild this lost bonding, or what it is called by Bill Devil and George Sessions, it is not creating something new, but it is reawakening of something which is very old. So we find that they are also moving towards something from the mainstream thinking. Now, deep ecology, as I said, therefore it requires a kind of spiritual maturity. Now, Theodore Roosevelt, he is an American novelist. He says that therefore this understanding, this spiritual maturity, how can it happen? He says that it can happen by an awakening of wholes greater than some of their parts. In spirit, therefore, this discipline is contemplative and therapeutic. And this is what he mentions as something which is a unique personality which we can develop. Now, when we talk about this unique personality, we find Swamiji is having a very beautiful conversation with Ima Kalve about how exactly we think that we are individuals, but we are not individuals yet. We are on our way to realize our individuality. What we call our individuality is our very narrow sense of individuality, taking Mr. and Miss, all as our body-centric individuality. So he says that there is no individuality except in the infinite. So while having a conversation on immortality and survival of individual characters, he's having a discussion, and Ima Kalve, she subtly reacts to this and says that I cannot bear the idea, I cling to my individuality, unimportant as it may be, I do not want to be absorbed in an eternal unity. So she feared, why she said that is because she feared that she would be losing her narrow individuality. Then Swamiji came up with a solution to her and said, answered and gave an example to Ima Kalve, saying that one day a drop of water fell into the ocean. Now, when it found itself there, it began to weep and complain, just as you, pointing to Ima Kalve, you are doing. The great ocean laughed at the drop of water. But why do you weep? It asks. I do not understand. When you join men, you join all your brothers and sisters, the other drops of water of which I am made. You become the ocean itself. If you wish to leave me, you will have to rise up on a sunbeam into the clouds, and from there you can descend again, a little drop of water, a blessing and a benediction to the thirsty earth. Can I have some water, please?
You need the drop of water.
So you can have ocean of water.
So this is how he had mentioned to Ima Kalve, and this is in fact showing us the essence of deep ecology. It requires a kind of understanding of the subsuming capacity of human mind to take nature in its entirety, to understand the human nature symbiosis. And that, of course, is necessary for sustainable development. Now, WHO is talking a lot of sustainable development. How can we actually lead to that? It can happen when this is actually practiced in the long run. And in long run, the solution can only be provided by the deep ecological understanding. Otherwise, it will not. Because deep ecology, this has been devised by RNAs, by sitting with George Sessions, and there was a difference. Both of them showed what is the difference between shallow ecology and deep ecology. Shallow is always thinking in terms of human interest, narrow, selfish desires, how much I'm going to get for myself. Even when we talk about the sustainable development, environmentalists would say this very idea of sustainable development is in fact not something, not without self-interest. It also has self-interest because we are thinking about the future generation. So something has to have intrinsic worth. We have to understand, appreciate the intrinsic worth, and that can develop when we have this conscience of deep ecology. So we find that in the deep ecology, there is a core of, they say, Bill Devil and George Sessions say, a core democracy in the biosphere, because every living being has an equal right to thrive. None of it is claimed superior or inferior in that way. I would rather say that deep ecology, in fact, shows the very idea to move beyond the biosphere to move towards the ecosphere. Why it is so? Because I'll come to that. Because deep ecology is rooted on two fundamental norms, which are biocentric equality and self-realization. In fact, if we delve very deeply, we will find that biocentric equality gets its rationale from self-realization itself. So I'll come to that. Now, this idea, this subsuming capacity, taking life, seeing every life itself having a value. It is, in fact, we cannot express it in rational understanding or in words. It is a kind of mystical experience that this happened to Albert Schweitzer, and he has beautifully explained how he had, he came across this kind of an experience which is called reverence for life. So he was moving on an upriver in Africa, and there were 4 hippopotamuses on the other side of the bank plodding towards them. And suddenly this idea struck on him, reverence for life. He said, never before I had come across this particular word, but this gave me, various answers to the questions with which they were troubling me for so long. And he could really understand then what is to be ethical. This reverence for life, in fact, showed him, provided him answer that what is it for an individual to be ethical. He says an individual is an ethical person, can be an ethical only when life as such is sacred to him, that of plants and animals and that of his fellow men, and when he devotes helpfully to all life that is in need of help. And he says, therefore, this reverence for life has taught me this fundamental idea that I am life that wills to live in the midst of life that wills to live. Now, I come to this development of deep ecology has not been, as I said, it has not been a certain, culmination. It has been a gradual process through anthropocentrism, moving through biocentrism, and then coming to the concept of deep ecology. Now, when we talk about even moving beyond biocentrism, taking not only the living beings, but also the inanimate beings into domain, because the environmentalists would say, if they talk about the living beings, what about the inanimate objects? Won't they be considered, won't I rationally, morally deal with them? Can I pollute rivers? Can I cut the trees? Although plants have conscious life. Even in the Manu Samhita, we have various arguments giving that there is life in it, much before Jagdish Chandra Bose, in his response to living and non-living, has given us. So we find that in the ecocentric ethics, which is far beyond biocentrism, it says, Aldo Leopold, there's a beautiful book, Sand County Almanac. In that book, there is an article there, which is called the Land Ethic. And this land ethic, there he urges us to expand the field of ethical concern to include soils, plants, water, animals, or collectively the land. So we see that for the ecocentrist, which is beyond biocentrism, land is not just looked as a dead matter. It is a circuit of energy. It is flowing through the soils to the living beings. Now, how do we get this rationale to deal with or make an interconnected whole of moving from the living to the non-living and making it a holistic vision? Now, this rationale brings us to deep ecology. As we have it, the deep ecology, as it is said, is established on two fundamental norms that I was discussing, on biocentric equality, which is the same as biospheric egalitarianism, and self-realization. Arnes, in fact, was indebted to the Upanishads, to the Gita, from where he had actually got this kind of a vision. And he was a Norwegian philosopher, and he says it goes beyond this idea, it goes beyond this modern Western self, which is defined as an isolated ego striving primarily for hedonistic gratification or for narrow sense of individual salvation in this life or the next. So we find that deep ecology is talking about a kind of metaphysics or ontology rather than the scientific and shallow hope for technological quick fix solution. Now coming to the Vedic thoughts. Now we find that we are actually moving from the biocentric, that is why I said that it is not just biospheric egalitarianism but beyond. Because we are not just restricted to the living beings, we are in fact having a moral obligation to the earth in entirety, considering everything in it. In the Vedic thoughts, as for example in the Rig Veda Samhita, we have the idea of biocentrism, ecocentrism, everything that is there, only we have not, come up with these particular terms. This was all, these ideas were present in condensed form there. In the Rig Veda Samhita, we have the idea of Aranyani Devi. She is the deity who is prayed for the forest. And the living beings, they pray to the Aranyani Devi so that they can live peacefully in the forest, or if they traverse the forest land, may they be uninjured in that way. So this is a kind of reverence they show towards the forest, because the forest provides them sustenance in respect of food, in respect of shelters to the different living animals. So there is a kind of coexistence of, they know that the other living beings also thrive in the forest. So the biodiversity that we talk about, they understood the importance of the forest. Then we have the concept of the Oshadi. There are 107 forms of medicinal plants, and they are prayed. The seers pray to the medicinal plants so that their, the different maladies are being removed, and in the time of plucking them, should they not be harmed. So this is the kind of concern they had towards these medicinal plants, even if they use them for their own benefit. So this kind of a subtle idea, they already had it. And there is mention of, thousands and thousands of animals. There was a practice of gifting animals. So there is mention of thousands of animals, and so we can understand how ecological balance was maintained. Now we have a random practice of meat eating, or that was also present in that time. It's not that it was not present, but it was restricted to only the animal offered in the sacrifice. And if you look at it philosophically, one thing we can actually bring it out from it is that our carnal desires were restricted to only the meat offered in the sacrifice. So in this way, this was a kind of initiative taken to maintain the ecological balance, other than having meat which is not offered to God. So this is also because we, in the Manu Samhita and the Yajnavalkya Samhita and Kautilya's Arthashastra, there are various punishments levied for harming, torturing, tormenting animals. Even in the Kautilya's Arthashastra, we have veterinary doctors who have to deal with the different, the outgrow of different things in the animals. There are ration provided to the animals according to their body weight, according to the workload they take. And if the, doctors, the veterinary doctors do not address to this medical need, if this attention is not given, fine is being levied for this. So everything was taken into consideration. It is not that humans have to play a dominant role on nature. It is nature, we are a component of nature. We are part and parcel of nature, not having this idea of dominion over nature. Next, if we come to the Prithvi Sukta, then we find that...
The shlokas also you can read from Sanskrit.
Okay, Mataji.
The sound of Sanskrit is so melodious. Prithvi Sukta.
Yeah, it is in the Prithvi Sukta, that forms the 12th chapter of the Atharva Veda Samhita, and there are 63 hymns all dedicated to the Mother Earth. And it is said in the Asambadham Madhyato Manavahanam Yasya Udvata Pravataha Samam Bahu Nana Virya Oshadhya Vibhartihi Prithivina Prathatam Radhyatanam Naha. It is given there. So it is a marvelous composition of the Vedic rishis, and it says, it explains the multifaceted variety of the earth's crust, where is included the forests, the snow-clad mountains, the rivers, the animal world, and all have got an equal right to thrive on this earth, because the earth is looked upon as the mother. And the mother does not discriminate between the child who is high or low, because this fundamental idea, Mata Bhumi Putro Aham Prithviya. So this is the idea that they have in the Prithvi Sukta. So as mother is looking towards their child without the sense of indiscrimination, the children also have certain responsibilities towards their mother. So it is not to, go beyond the line of control. How much I should take from nature, how much I have to take so that I do not harm nature. So this was the fundamental idea that was present in the Prithvi Sukta, and nowadays it is said, in fact, this maternal qualities are what is required in order to bring out a harmony, a solidarity of all life forms on earth. As it is said by Bill Devils and George Sessions again, that this is not abstract sloganizing and posturing, but it is personal, caring, individual action in the context of small groups. And it is believed that the values like love, compassion, receptivity, caring, cooperation, listening, patience, nurturing, deep feeling, which are labeled as feminine, are believed to guide us in our practice of creative direction. So we see that this was already present in our, in the Indian tradition. So this is how they capture these various, the Rig Veda Samhita, the Atharva Veda Samhita, then the, in the Yajur Veda Samhita, both in the Shukla Yajur Veda, then in the Krishna Yajur Veda, also we have this idea of biocentrism, ecocentrism, and all moving towards a fundamental goal of self-realization. So they say that, so this biospheric egalitarianism is taken beyond in the Vedic area, in the Vedic era, to include nature in its entirety. When the seers like pray that Madhu Vata Ritayate Madhu Sharanti Sindava Madhu Madhvirnahas Sant Oshadihi. So this is how the entire nature is taken in its entirety. It is not a compartmental division, it is not compartmentalized in that sense. It is a vision, it is an appreciation, it is a subtle remembrance of how life is being given by nature itself. We have this concept of Pancha Mahayagya in the Vedic tradition, where this obligation is being offered to the nature because we are sustained by nature itself. Even in the Jain tradition also we have this idea of pratikramana, where they have this kind of penance they do in the mornings, before the sunrise and after the sunset, for whatever ill they have committed unknowingly or knowingly towards all this nature in the entirety. The philosophy behind this, I have to be non-violent towards nature, and this non-violence surpasses the boundaries of the living being, taking nature in its entirety. That is why I say that this is this fundamental idea of self-realization, which is providing the rationale to move beyond biospheric egalitarianism, and this is already present in our Indian tradition. So, coming to Swamiji's idea, it is wonderfully explained how we can actually understand this biospheric egalitarianism and beyond. But before that, so we see that this idea of deep ecology, it is being said that this idea is religious in the sense like whoever have practiced it, they have made society aware of this destructive way in which we live in relation to the natural setting, have had such a religious feeling. And I would mention one such name of Saint Francis Assisi, how his life was in communion with nature. He used to talk with nature, that nature was like with full of life. When he used to sit, the deer used to come, the birds used to start chirping, and there was a wonderful poem, Canticle of Creatures, where he addresses sister moon, brother wind, sister water, brother fire, sister mother earth. So takes entire nature into its domain, and love for nature is boundless. Shows, it is simply overwhelmed. Everyone seeing him sitting in the park, all other animals coming around him and sitting around him. So Swami Vivekananda says, if you go on loving one person after another, you may go on loving them so for an infinite length of time without being in the least able to love the world as a whole. But what exactly is the true meaning of love? That he explains in the idea of loving the Shamashti. He explains To love the whole universe is possible only by loving the samashti, the universal, which is as it were the one unity in which are to be found millions and millions of smaller unities. And therefore, he says, therefore we find that this division that we do between humans and the rest of the world, it is artificial. Modern days also there are philosophers, as for example the Australian philosopher Warwick Fox is also mentioning that all that we are doing, this division that is also artificial. Swamiji also, in his complete works, we find his utterance. Thinkers in ancient India gradually came to understand that the idea of separateness was erroneous, that there was a connection among all those distinct objects. There was a unity which pervaded the whole universe, trees, shrubs, animals, men, devas, even God himself. The Advaitin, reaching the climax in this line of thought, declared all to be the manifestation of that one. As in the Rig Veda mantra we have Ekam Satvebra Bahuda Vadanti. So in reality, the metaphysical and the physical universe are one, and the name of this one is Brahman. And therefore, if we find this, what is the task that is left before us? So the task is, in fact, the realization of self in self, where self starts with a capital S, for organic wholeness, where the phrase one includes not only me, an individual human, but all humans, whales, grizzly bears, whole rainforest ecosystems, mountains and rivers, the tiniest microbes in the soil, and so on. This the deep ecologist would say. Simultaneously, if I draw a parallel from the words of Swamiji, he says it is the Atman, the soul, in the saint and the sinner, in the happy and the miserable, in the beautiful and the ugly, in men and in animals. It is the same throughout. It is the shining one. The difference is caused by power of expression. In some it is expressed more, it is in others less. But the difference of expression has no effect on the Atman. And the difference is only in degree and not in kind. So this is what I wanted to say.
Thank you for the beautiful presentation, connecting with the modern deep ecologists, the ancient wisdom of India, the Vedic wisdom, and Swami Vivekananda, and so on. So this is a remarkable thing which is moving. Recently, particularly post-Corona, COVID-19, a new concept of health is coming up. We are also trying to get into this in the university, which is called concept of One Health. WHO has promoted it, and ICMR, Indian Council of Medical Research, has taken it up. And then we are trying to take it in a big way. It is SPAH, soil, plant, animal, and human. So all of them are interrelated. I can't be healthy unless the soil is healthy, animals are healthy, and plants are healthy, and the entire universe is healthy. My health depends upon the health of all of them. We have been exploiting the soil, we have been exploiting the animals, we have been exploiting this kingdom which consists of the entire, even the aquatic animals. Because of that exploitation, we become unhealthy because we have been exploiting for too long. And as the Greek philosophers say, if you pry into nature and exploit nature, nature will come back with a nemesis and give you two tight slaps on your cheeks by sending the corona. The tiniest of the tiniest of the tiniest virus, which doesn't have any life, that comes to life when it comes in contact with life. That has completely shaken the whole globe for a couple of years. All your great Nobel laureates and biologists, all of them fell flat. Nature said, I send you a small virus, see what happens. So let us be humble first. And then we are not the masters of the whole universe. There is a master above, under whom everybody is equal. Samoham sarvabhuteshu name dveshyosti napriya. 9th chapter of the Gita. All of them are equal to me. And there is no particular preference. So the reverentially treat everybody. There is a Hitchcock movie called Birds.
Yeah.
Many of you must have seen that.
Yeah.
All the birds decided to attack man. Mankind will be simply thrown out of gears if the nature attacks us. Tsunami, for example. The sea decided it will swell and attack man. Where are you? Therefore, have reverence for nature. See, earliest Vedic period, they were afraid of nature. Always they prayed, please protect me, and so on. Even in the Greek philosophers also. The fear of nature, because man is helpless before nature. The helplessness of all your artificial intelligence before the intelligence of a little virus. We got two things. One is multiplication, the other is mutation. The moment you produce a vaccine for something, it is already mutated to something else. Now they say that alpha variant has come, there should be. By the time you find a vaccine for alpha, it will become beta, gamma, and you don't know what. So this is the Mahishasura mutating constantly. When Devi tried to kill the Mahishasura as a lion, it became an elephant. An elephant, it became, say, Khalgapani. It's only the Divi Mahatman is mentioned. And the Raktabija is an example of multiplication. One drop of blood falls, another. So quick mutation and multiplication, man has no answer. So man should be humble. To humble man's so-called progressive intelligence, nature has thrown on a small virus which crippled humanity for 2 full years. So let us remember the power of nature and the power of that supreme intelligence which rules over nature. Einstein famously said, my religion consists of a humble adoration of an illimitable intelligence which our dull faculties can comprehend only in the most primitive form. So this has been talked about, discussed endlessly in the Vedic period, later on the Upanishads and so on. And they always ask the question, Kasmin bhagavo vigyate sarvamidam vigyatam bhavati, the theory of everything, which Hawking talks about. What is the unified field theory, the holy grail which Einstein was chasing without success? There should be some one principle, and all the manifestations are only manifestations of that one principle. And there is infinite variety. Don't kill the variety, celebrate the variety, knowing the one principle of which all this is manifestations. That's why the Gita's 10th chapter, Vibhuti Yoga, such a wonderful, Bhagavan says, I am here, I am here, I am here. Nowadays we call it signature of God. God says, Himalaya, I am here, Krishna. Ocean, I am here, Krishna. So the whole world is pulsating with the divine consciousness and the discovery of prana in the Vedic period. There's one beautiful verse on prana which Rabindranath quotes in the Shantiniketan essays, the sadhana essays. Prano virat. Prana, life is immense. So the immensity and the variety and the infinitude of the entire universe in which God is willing to manifest. He chooses to manifest infinite variety, and man wants to say that there should be something, everybody should be uniform. There can't be uniformity, there is a unity between all this. Celebrate the variety and discover the unity of which we are part. Ultimately, you are one with the entire universe. Aham Radrebhir Svarabhishcharamyaham Devi Suktam, etc. A woman, Vak. She discovered, I am in the moon, I am the sun, I am this, I am the entire universe. I pervade the whole universe, just like Sri Krishna did. And extreme ultra-Advaitic texts like the Ashtavakra Samhita says, I am that infinite ocean of consciousness in which the worlds rise and fall. Mayyananta maham bodho vascharayam jiva vichaya ujjanti ghanti khelanti pravishanti spabhavataha. Our individuality is nothing. And we're afraid to lose our individuality. Swami Vivekananda used to make fun of the Westerners. You Westerners are so much afraid of losing your individuality, making fun of them. You are not individual Z, as she beautifully said. You will be when you become universal. Your individuality is the universality is your individuality. So we are afraid. Emma Calvé is terribly afraid. You know the story of Emma Calvé. She was a French opera singer and celebrity. As most celebrities are, she was terribly depressed, frustrated, unhappy. She even wanted to end her life. Somebody told her, Swami Vivekananda, a great Indian yogi, is here in Paris, go and meet him. She entered the room, Swamiji was writing something, he did not even look up. Said, my child, what a terrible atmosphere you have brought with you. The storm is raging in your heart. Calm down, sit down. She sat in his front. Swamiji looked in the eyes and spoke about some of the innermost secrets of her life which she had not shared with anybody. She was flabbergasted, frightened. Swami, how could you know all this? Did anybody speak to you about me? Swami just smiled and said, is it necessary? I can see you like an open book. And the spiritual impulse of Advaita which he gave, don't brood over secret sorrow. You are not an individual encased in this woman's body, you are the infinite self. That worked instantly and then started losing herself. Kind of samadhi. Then cried, Swami, what are you doing? I'm losing myself. I don't know what I'm doing. My individuality is gone. Then he told the story. Where is your individuality? A water drop falling into the ocean was crying, I'm losing my individuality as a drop. The ocean said, no, my child. You're regaining your individuality as the ocean. That's your real individuality. When I read this, I was asking Swamiji myself, what did you do as Naren? Ramakrishna touched him when giving the universal experience. He said, no, I have parents at home, I am Naren. So that clinging to the individuality is most natural. Aho digambhira duravagatya vichitra jayam maya yadayam paramatma satatvopi buddhamanopi aham paramatma iti na grinhati anuchyamanopi aham amushya putre iti grinhati. Even though you are not told you are so-and-so son or daughter, you cling to that. And the scriptures say, the Guru says, everybody says, you are that infinite self. After hearing all that is true. But I am not that infinite self. I feel a pain in the heart. This man is my enemy, that man I don't like. How silly we are. Even as little Vedanta will give you that infinite wisdom. Now the two papers are open for questions. Japasiddhananda and if anybody has anything, any clarification, questions, comments, we have some 15 minutes.
Another 10 minutes of question, if anybody has. Make your questions as short as possible so that they can respond rather than explanation.
Yeah.
Please. Anybody? If you don't have.
If everybody is so happy.
Other day you were telling about spiritual heart is on the right side.
No, this is
anatomical heart.
confined to these two papers.
Okay.
I will talk to them later.
Okay.
These two papers, Japasiddhananda on Swami Vivekananda's 4 yogas and their harmony, and Dr. Paromita Roy is Biospheric Egalitarianism, that means deep equality, reverence for life in the Western as well as Eastern. Any comments, clarification, very brief, that also is good enough.
Just a
If any insights,
clarification,
yes, please.
Thank you for your wonderful paper of joy, the culmination of the 4 yogas, a harmonizing of the 4 yogas. I'm just wanting to understand if I understood it correctly. In previous ages, all those in the scriptures, they are there, Jnana Yoga and the Bhakti, and they're mentioned, but with each sort of social or historical context, it is one, either Jnana comes forward in that time. It's like what we would call in English a history of ideas, but it's always been there in the existing scriptures. It's just in a certain period something gets highlighted. Am I correct in understanding that? Or something
Means-
comes to the fore.
In the earlier ages, these different methods were present, but they could attain to the goal by following one alone. It was possible. Or if anyone wished that he will take up a combination of 2, that was also possible. But now, Swamiji points out, and Bhagavan Ramakrishna also says, this combination of all the four will be more effective. We can reach very quickly. Because, let us say, we are oriented towards devotion. We pray for 3-4 hours. We sing the name, the glories of the Lord. And once we come out of that, we will be doing some household chores. Let us assume like that. Now, the Karma Yoga will say that also can be again converted into spiritual sadhana. The household chores which we perform. How? Offering that means performing the same activity without any attachment to the fruits and without any attachment to the action also. As an act of worship to the Lord, if we perform this, that again becomes a sadhana. And again, when we go and study, let us say we sit down and study some Bhagavata or Bhagavad Gita. There we find in Swami Brahmanandaji Maharaj's life, Swami Brahmanandaji, who is the Manasa Putra of Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna, he says, even before performing the exercise, just offer a salutation to the Lord. And after the physical exercise is over, once again, even that can be turned into worship of the Lord. That is how Bhagavan Sri Shankara in the Stotra, he points out that Shiva Manasa Puja we find, whatever I do, may that be a worship to you. Again, the same thing Bhagavan Shankara mentions in Saundarya Lahari also. Whatever I do, may that be a worship to you, Holy Mother. Like that, these are all there, but the emphasis was not there. And that Swamiji highlighted, and Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna lived that. Shastras were there, but Bhagavan lived that and showed it. That's why in the Narada Bhakti Sutra we find Satchastri Kurvanti Shastrani. If Ramakrishna had not showed that in his life, probably we would have thought that's a good idea. May not be practical. That doubt would have lingered on. Guru Maharaj has removed that, and Swamiji showed that to the whole world.
Maybe
what she was asking was
conclude.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to conclude.
Just you can sit here for Pujya Swamijis and Paromita ji. Thank you so much for such enlightening, time we spent with you all. Just as Swamiji was speaking, I was remembering Yajnarthat Karmano Netra Lokoyam Karma Bandhana Tadattam Karma Kaunte Mukta Sangha Samasa. If we are able to convert every action of ours into a selfless action, then we are, free. Otherwise, everything is going to bind us. And it's so beautifully mentioned in such a lovely language by both of you, Swamijis. We are very grateful to you. And Paromita ji, if Jau Shanti, Antariksham Shanti, and all that, when all that Shanti is there, then only that Shanti will be mine. Sama Shanti Redi. Because there has to be peace everywhere, in the skies, in the heavens, in the plants, in the water, etc. If we allow all the chemicals into the water will die. Water dies, everybody will die. Keeping that in, there has to be that, understanding in us that we are part of this. And then only we will be there. I will conclude with, there was a great author and a scholar from Karnataka by name Dr. Shivarama Karam. We had invited him here to the Bhavan. We honored him with a citation. He never liked to go and make speeches, etc. When we forced him, he went on to the stage. We have arrived on this earth after millions of years. And the earth is going to be there for millions more. We are exploiting this earth as if it only belongs to us. What right have we got? And then he stepped down. That's all he said. And today's lecture, today's upanyas, we have learned so much. And we are very grateful to you all. And Ayuji, thank you so much for making it possible for all of us. I have to leave. I have some.
Yeah, please.
I'll see you a little later.
Yeah, okay.
Namo Namah.
So any other
As a woman, we do everything, this whole
You are not a woman, you are not a man.
And in the everyday, our household work, we do combine the all four yoga. In the morning, we do the arati, we do the meditation, then we read the books. So, Bhakti Yoga and Jnana Yoga, Gospel, we are reading Gita, Chandi. Then we go for the household work, our cooking, gardening, washing, and so this part of yoga we are doing. Driving, we are seeing patients. My Gurudev told me, see every patient as your worship to God. So any man come, you see it is my father, it is my brother, it is my husband, treat them like that. So we did that work as a worship. And what else? Karma yoga, Jnana yoga, Bhakti yoga, Raj yoga, we do meditation. So all four yoga we combine every day to day life.
So what's your question?
No, what I said combined, we are doing it already.
See, I have a small submission. The combination does not mean in the morning 2 hours they do Bhakti yoga over, then they take it is not that kind of combination. Attitudinally, mentally, you will constantly have an attitude of worship, Ishvara Bhakta, or an attitude of a jnani, that I am completely detached. Naiva kinchit karoviti, yukto manyeta tattva prasham, prasham jikran, ashnam gachan, svasha, etc. I am a jnani, I simply detach, let the senses, indriyani indriyartheshu vartantiti dharayam. Then with that attitude comes go on. And if you are a Rajayogi, you will say, I am deeply concentratedly doing something through which my higher self will be awakened, Kundalini awakening or higher self awakening, and Jnana Bhakti. And if a Karma Yogi, of course, I am not attached to the results of work, neither am I attached to the work itself. Without any attachment, you do any work. The attitude which you bring to bear upon every action that you do, either Bhakti or Jnana, that predilection makes you a Bhakti Yogi or a Jnana Yogi. A Bhakta, constantly I am working for the Lord. I am cooking for the Lord. Even eating. Aham Vaishwanaro Bhutva Praninam Deham Ashara. There's a fire which is in my stomach which is craving for food. That fire is actually the Lord Himself. So with that attitude you do. And if your predilection is Jnana Yoga, then you say, I am completely detached, the mind and body work, I don't care what happens. So it is the attitudinal transformation that you bring to bear upon all the activities that you do, all the meditation that you do. It is not morning 6 to 7, Raja Yoga, 10. That kind of combination is not.
I just
No, I'm telling you, many people do that. They combine all that, 6 to 7, 8 and then mostly between 10 and 5 years do yoga. Therefore I come back at home and they do Bhakti Yoga. See, it is not a compartmentalized 4 yogas combined like that. Your attitude inwardly, through which you go through life itself, that may be predominantly Jnana attitude, or a Bhakti attitude, or a Yogi attitude. That there the combination, you may talk about combination, you have to be predominantly one. Swamiji did not say you should be everything combined. And you should have the capacity to be able to switch from one to the other very quickly. As he quoted Swamiji, saying this moment he will be in the heights of Samadhi, next moment he can sell the produce in the market. There should not be any hiatus or gap between your capacity to be seamlessly moving from one to the other. And your question, there's one more addition, what he said was in a particular aspect. She was asking, there is an age in which predominantly Jnana operates. We call the rational age, for example. A Renaissance age, at the predominantly scientific temper operates. So, not that everywhere everything existed, it is not correct. Everything did not exist at all times. In principle it was there. But a particular age, when the philosophers came, the Western philosophers, what that age called?
Enlightenment.
An age of
Age of
enlightenment.
enlightenment.
Yeah.
And the rationalists, they were dancing on the stage saying everything should be look at the principle of rationality, get into some white heads. Bertrand Russell, Whitehead, everything should be true to mathematically precise, logically it should be put. One kind of age will be taught predominantly. Even Ramakrishna's life, there was a time all jnanis will come. He used to say, and Satchidananda, Asti Bhati Priya, whole air was full of the jnana vibrations. Then they will go, the group will come. So in age also, predominantly one idea takes charge.
Yeah, that's what I was.
That's what you are trying to say.
clarify.
And now, Swami Vivekananda somehow felt, intuitively or by Ramakrishna's own declaration, in the present age, this is not an age where rationality will predominate, or love will predominate, or work will predominate, or yoga will predominate. Now the yoga which is being practiced, etc., is actually a combination of everything. This is the age in which there cannot be any exclusive predominance of a particular aspect of these faculties. It's a combined approach to the whole of life itself, which Ramakrishna represents. It was Swamiji's idea, which he called the Satya Yuga of the present age. He says the moment Ramakrishna was born, Satya Yuga started. That Satya Yuga is an age in which there will be no division, there will be disharmony, there will be age of harmony and peace. That was the idea.
Yeah.
What you said was each age is right. This age, speciality of this age is this. And Swamiji somehow believed it and repeatedly mentioned it because Ramakrishna was such a harmony.
And he lived it in his
And
life.
now, see, can you imagine a person who was so much devoted to Kali? Day and night he cried for her, worshipped her. Totapuri said, go to the highest. He reached up to the stage of Kali. He saw an effulgent, vibrant, luminous form of Kali living, compassionate mother. I cannot go beyond my mother. Totapuri, being a stern Advaitist, said, "Kyun nahi hoga? You have to do it." Took a piece of glass and struck at the Ajna Chakra. Meditate on this. Then he said, Ramakrishna says, I meditated on that. And again, when the form of Kali came, I imagined knowledge, jnana, to be a khadga sword, and cut the form of Kali into two and merged it into samadhi. Can you think of it? The boldness of approach. I will go wherever truth will lead me. Just because I love Kali and then attached to Kali, I will be stuck there. Don't be stuck. And he came back again and became the child of Kali again. When he practiced Islam, all the pictures he removed from his room. He could not bear the sight of the pictures. He stopped going to the temple. He lived like a Muslim, etc. And then he could not eat anything without onion and garlic. He wanted to eat beef.
Yes.
Then Mathura said, Baba, it's a little too much for them.
He brought the Muslim cook.
Yeah, I'd say 3 days, attained the highest and came back. So that is the highest order, but that is example. Keeping such a person as example, can you, or the modern, when the modern we say IT, simulation. So you will not achieve that. Computer simulation, you know computer. You simulate his ideal. That is called practice, that's called imitation of Christ. You imitate his ideal, think of the ideal. You can have a psychological simulation of Sri Ramakrishna's spiritual harmony which he realized. Psychologically, mentally, you can simulate that idea. And that is most beneficial in the modern age. That's what I'm about. That's my understanding.
If I could just say thank you for your talk as well. I really am not sort of doing this as etiquette, but genuinely at this time to come with those ideas of what is the bio and the echo and deep ecology, and also that what is intrinsic and what is instrumental. These were all there in our traditions, and to bring it with obviously this whole canon of English thinkers. I just wanted to share, I volunteer in a botanical garden, and one of the things is the Maori, 10,000 years ago, they had also started out their traditions of medicine. And 10,000 years ago, they always insisted that humans are descendants of plants. And through colonialism, through exploitation, it was always considered primitive and, totally impossible. But now, what we see in biology is that in every organism cell is the mitochondria. Whether we are plant, whether we are animal, whether we are human. And the mitochondria in the cell is what holds the energy supply, which provides the supply to the rest of the body. So it's just so interesting how something so basic, and it was totally an oral tradition of transmitting. And they had these they had this idea of medicine, which is the human body is there, you have a mind, but there's always a spirit. And the person who can treat the spirit in those old traditions was called the Tohunga, which meant the seer of hidden light. So I say this in relation to what Swamiji brings to us in our modern post empire, post industrial age, into beyond artificial intelligence, how we keep that spiritual realization as the unity in everything, whether we are physicists, whether we are biologists. So I really, really thank you for this extreme and so lovely of you all to come on a Monday with these revered people here. Maharaj, thank you. And Nitish, thank you so much for...
Nitish is the man who coordinates
so
and makes
really,
things possible.
Yes, thank you. I hope it's okay, but Sanchita is an amazing vocalist. If we could have, as we close with the session of Bhakti, if we could just have something song, please.
You can go to Tampura, the mobile also. Tampura is there, the mobile.
She take us now, she lifts us to
sure,
that
sure.
other space. Thank
We
you.
ultimately end with Bhakti. Tampura actually again. Sold. पोहे निरंतर ठीक है
This is my what is it?
My humble calamity to this Swamiji, and seeking your blessings and commands to all of you. That's the bhajan book. I'm just feeling to say, जैसे ही रखो, तैसे ही रहो. I'm just getting the feelings, so that's starting to... It is Surda. It is जैसे ही जैसे राखो तैसे राहो कब हूँ न कब हूँ कभो जन देते कृपा करे कब हूँ भूख सहूँ कब हूँ कभो जन देते कृपा करे कब हूँ भूख सहूँ कब हूँ चढ़ूँ तुरंग महक जय कब हूँ चढ़ूँ तुरंग महक जय कब हूँ भार बहूँ जैसे राखो तैसे ही रहूं जैसे ही राखो तैसे ही रहूं कमल नयन घन श्याम मनोहर 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 अनुचर भैरव सूरदास प्रभु भक्त चरण के तुम्हारे चरण गहो सूरदास प्रभु भक्त भगन को चर बिन कमल जैसे ही राखो तैसे ही रहूं जैसे ही राखो तैसे ही रहूं जैसे ही राखो तैसे ही रहूं जानत हो सब सुख दुख जना को मुख कर जैसे ही राखो तैसे ही रहूं जैसे ही राखो तैसे ही रहूं
मधुनक्तमुतोषसि मधुमत्पार्थिवगुं रजः मधुर्जौरस्तु नः पिता मधुमान्नो वनस्पतिर्मधुमागुम् अस्तु सूर्यः माध्वीर्गावो भवन्तु नः ॐ शान्तिः 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 हरिः ॐ तत्सत् श्रीरामकृष्णार्पणमस्तु.
Thanks for everybody for attending, listening, participating and absorbing.